Anybody else? In that case, we'll move on to open forum. This would be a time if anybody would like to address the council. You can come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and the only thing we would ask is that you limit your comments to 5 minutes. Is there anybody here tonight who would like to address the council? Chief.
Yes. Here's one team 24 worker right now. Over the past several years, the city has spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort in an attempt to go green. We have solar panels. We've developed a brownfield area to try to reclaim that. We've done a lot of health initiatives within the city with like the 1K walk we had a few years ago. We've outlawed smoking in all our city buildings and public buildings. We've outlawed smoking in the parks. Year after year, though, we rubber stamp both of the burnings in this town. And I think it's time that we spend some time and money and an effort to try to eliminate that. I think it's a health problem. I know it's a money issue, but we've spent a lot of money in other ways, but every year we have this issue. I know the police department takes their time every year going chasing calls that are burning after hours, burning before hours, burning before the time starts, burning after the time starts. I know we've had structure fires in the past because of this. I would just like us to look at it and see if there's an alternative to do this. But every year it comes up and boom, it's on council and boom, it gets passed. So we talked about this several years ago, but probably for the last 4 to 5 years, there's been no discussion. And I will offer that I will try to help to try to find some alternative and be a part of that. But I think it's time. Most other metro cities do not allow burning. I know in Polk County you can't burn without a permit. So I don't know, is there something else we can do? And I think that's what we need to ask ourselves. We do all these things, we spend thousands of dollars on a bike trail to be healthy, but we burn. All the good that we're doing planting trees is probably, wiped out when we start burning leaves in the fall.
Chief, do you have any idea of how many residents actually participate in burning?
I have no idea. I mean, there's just a lot, man, varying times to time. And I know it's been a problem with, for the street department, we've had, a dump site at one point, but then we had problems with illegal dumping, and so I don't know if there's a way to, I don't mean to throw anything at Jack or Public Works, because I know they do a lot. We have free yard waste collection, every other week here in the city, and even in the fall, I know they're usually doing it throughout the city.
So this is mainly people burning leaves that they've raked up or something like that?
Generally, yeah, but every year we get other yard waste thrown in there. The biggest problem we have is the burning after hours and, people throwing stuff and burning things they shouldn't be burning every year, lumber, other stuff they're just pulling out of their yard and burning.
But we also have the
Fire pits
which allows people to burn year-round.
Yep, we do have.
Sometimes that's used too, I think.
Yep, I agree. And I think the biggest problem is, one of the other problems is sometimes, depending on the weather and depending on, everybody's schedule, they try to burn it when they can, and then we're burning wet leaves, and we just have smoldering piles everywhere, which creates an even bigger issue, I think. I said my piece, but I'd be glad to try to look at some type of alternative, or be happy to sit with somebody to try to figure out an alternative for the city to do that.
I agree.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
In that case, we'll call this public hearing closed at 6:30 p.m. and move on to old business. Resolution approving bid for Highway 144 intersection signal improvements. The Perry City Council has decided to reduce the 4-lane of Highway 144 to a safer three-lane section at the intersection of Highway 144 and Willis Avenue, including traffic signal replacement. And whereas bids have been received and opened at the bid letting on September 2nd, 2015 at 2 p.m. with bids received from Henriksen of Grimes in the amount of $403,006 and from Voltmer Electric of Decorah, Iowa with a bid of $371,594.70. Matt Ferrier, engineer with Bolton & Mink, has received the bids with Voltmer Electric submitting a low bid of $371,594.70. This is below the engineer's estimate of $404,501. This project will be paid for by Traffic Safety Improvement Program grant the City of Perry received from the Iowa Department of Transportation in the amount of $380,000.
I'd move that we approve the resolution accepting the bid from Voltmer Electric in the amount of $371,594.70 for the Highway 144 intersection signal improvements.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments?
Matt Ferrier did call me this afternoon. He would be here, but he had some travel problems and called me in a broken down car on the side of Highway 30. So, he said that, he hasn't heard back from the DOT, so there's still a possibility that we might be able to get some more money to help with some additional costs with engineering and stuff. So that's a possibility to help out. And then also, we might be able to work with some of the quantities to make it a better cost share, so he was in support of approving, so.
And this is an intersection near and dear to our hearts. We can hear the traffic going by on it right now. Other comments?
For right now, this is just going to be this block intersection, all four directions.
The three-lane section will go down to Otley and then all the way up to pavement, I believe.
Okay.
So it's really looking at that, kind of that downtown area, because that's where the majority of the accidents were.
Sure.
So that'll help with turning into, Wells Fargo and Come and Go and all those businesses, so it'll be a good deal.
Yeah, we sometimes forget, but there was a pedestrian death actually right at this intersection not all that long ago. Other comments? Please call the roll.
McCall.
Yes.
Stone. Yes. Wall. Edward. Yes. Schott. Yes.
Thank you. Resolution setting 2015 fall yard waste burning dates and procedures. Pursuant to Chapter 105.05 the Code of Ordinances of the City of Perry, Iowa, that the fall 2015 yard waste burning procedures shall be performed as follows. Backyard burning of yard waste materials is permitted from 10 a.m. to sundown from October 1st, 2015 to November 22nd, 2015. All burning is restricted to private property in the rear yard of the property, at least 30 feet from any building inhabited by other than the landowner or tenant conducting the open burning, and the fires must be supervised at all times. All non-burning yard waste disposal will be performed as set forth in Resolution Number 031615C dated March 16th, 2015. The City of Perry encourages residents to find alternative methods to open burning for yard waste disposal.
In order to open the discussion, I move the adoption of the resolution setting the 2015 fall yard waste burning and encourage us to discuss as per what Chief Vaughn's suggestion.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded, and it's time for discussion.
I would say a lot of consideration should be given to what Chief presented here earlier tonight. And if we've got alternative options for people, it makes sense to me that we would communicate that and go that route rather than, particularly, we know that it's a risk. Anytime anybody starts a fire for a good purpose or not, it's a risk that it's going to get out of control, that it's going to do something that we don't want to see happen. Don't we provide those large bags for, or is that just for yard waste, not leaves?
Yeah, leaves would fall under that too, but I think you have to buy them. Grocery stores,
Oh,
hardware
okay.
stores have to carry
But
those.
we can put them out on our curb and
It goes every other week to the north side of Willis or the south side.
That stop sits there 20 minutes at stop. Pickup.
And it stops right before Thanksgiving.
yeah, the problem is there's people that could responsibly do this and have responsibly done this, and there's people that have done a really poor job of following the guidelines. I'm not saying that would make it disappear either. I mean, you always have people that want to do what they want to do regardless of what our local ordinances say.
And I understand your concerns, Dr. McCauley, but I think we also need to be concerned about our citizens, in addition to our police department. You know, and I can just speak personally to this. I happen to live in a home that has a dozen big trees, and every day I can pick up a wheelbarrow full of trash that's fallen out of those trees. It's not leaves, it's sticks, it's small limbs, it's this and that. What am I supposed to do with that for 2 weeks? In between the time that I'm supposed to tie it all up into neat little bundles so they can throw it up in a truck, you know, it's a huge responsibility. And I really look forward to stockpiling some of it so in the fall I can light a match to it carefully and get rid of it. The other thing I do and have for years is probably take 50% of my stuff out to my farm and get it out of the city limits and stockpile it out there. You know, just so that I don't have to have that kind of a fire in the neighborhood. But when we shut down, and I know why we did, the burning area, it creates a huge headache for some of us that have a lot of trees on our property and want to keep it neat and tidy. I never burn a leaf. And trust me, I have hundreds of bags of leaves every fall. But I stack them, I fill them, I wait for the state to pick them up. But the brush and this and that that falls out of my trees, I don't know what to do with it.
You raise a good point.
We do, I mean, the city does have provisions for branches and brush too. I mean, it's a little more work. You have to cut it into 4-foot pieces and bind it up. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. The other thing is just some history on this topic. If you go back 12, 13 years ago, there was a group that came every year for, I want to say maybe 5 years, 4 at least, and they would fill seats whenever this item was on the agenda. And parts of that group had a spouse who was on oxygen, and they just said it was overwhelming when that stuff hit the air. And quite frankly, I think that group got aged, and I'm pretty sure they're just not even with us anymore. But it was really important to them at that time, and it was during that time that we had discussions similar to what we're having now. But what we talked about was, encouraging people to find alternate methods, and that's what that fourth item was that we read from this. I know that when Councilman Roberts was on council, he suggested maybe there were better ways to burn, to get something to get it up off the ground, especially leaves, so they would burn fast and not be a smoldering mess that goes all over everything. But all of those just fall into the realm of suggestion. I mean, they don't have the force of an ordinance. And it is interesting that somebody would come to this meeting and bring it up again, considering the past history of it. And I know that personally, especially leaves, right now I don't live in a place that has a yard. But when I did, which wasn't that long ago, we mulched our leaves, and it's amazing how many you can actually mulch, and your yard will accept them, and the grass still comes up as green as can be in the spring. And so that's certainly an alternative that people could use to burning. And I think the best investment I ever made was in a mulching mower. And we don't put clippings, we don't take clippings off the lawn either, we let them fall, and we've always had a beautiful lawn when we have them. At any rate, I think that it does deserve discussion.
Well, there's no doubt that it's a concern. It's a legitimate concern. I'm not trying to minimize that. The other side of it is, we have no viable options to throw on the table in place of burning at this point in time, do we? I've not heard any.
The bags
Not for the time of the break.
for people with large yards, and I do own one property that has a very large yard, and many other people in town do, or have a small yard, but many trees, as you talked about. I concur with the concern expressed. I personally mulch my leaves, and it does work out pretty well. I personally haven't burned for probably 20 years. So I concur, but at the same time, I'm concerned about the burden it puts on people that don't have a lot of other options. And if we tell people to buy the bags, and that's the only way the city will pick up the leaves, I believe that you can purchase the bags. They're rather costly, and, some people, I have a small yard. If I rake all my leaves, which I don't do anymore, I could have probably 30 bags, and that's not the small yard. It's putting a very large financial cost on some people that have large yards that maybe some people can't afford to. So I hear the concern and share it very much. Also, I'm quite convinced that maybe those people that Jay was talking about that used to fill the chambers when this topic came up are no longer with us. There still are many people who have emphysema and different health problems that I know are affected by the burning. And, we've all noticed on a Saturday morning, especially probably or afternoon, you literally see a cloud of smoke hanging over the neighborhood. And that's really no exaggeration. It is a cloud of smoke. So I'm concerned for what we're doing to people and the risk we put for fires, but I'm also concerned about not having options in place. I guess maybe one thing to look at is, fortunately or unfortunately, we're about the time for burning. Maybe one option is to approve it tonight, but really, and if we do approve it, to list some options for people in lieu of burning, but at the same time, prior to looking at this next spring, not forgetting it and try and have some of us, and maybe some of us even outside the group, look at other options that may be available. So maybe we wouldn't be so inclined to approve it in the spring. But that's part of my concern, though, too. Right now, we're right on top of the issue. We're talking about October 1st, and that's literally days away.
Yeah, that's true. October 1st is days away, but this fall is acting different than a lot of falls that we've had. I mean, things are extremely green right now, and usually by this time of year, things are starting to get brown and dry up. I think we have some time. I'd throw out an option of let's think of some things, some possibilities, and why not table this till our October 5th meeting? That's only 4 days after October 1st. I don't think it's going to make or break anybody to delay till then.
Well, as someone who has a spouse that is allergic to fire, smoke, we've contended with that for years. Not only here, but other places as well. And I've always felt like every neighborhood in Perry probably has somebody who's on oxygen or has emphysema or asthma or has an allergy that really impacts them. And I kind of share Chief Vaughn's approach that unfortunately maybe we've gone too easy on things. I would be less inclined to disapprove the resolution if we didn't have any alternatives. But the fact of the matter is we do. I mean, not only can you rake them up and put them in your garden, which I used to do, but you can mulch, and mulching is great, I think, and it's good for the yard, although some people would dispute that. And again, we have the alternative of putting it out in a sack. And I could stand corrected, but I do believe if you did the yard waste in the sacks in the metro, I think you have to pay extra for the bags. So whereas we might be able to buy them for a dollar and a half, I think now we're in the metro probably talking about $3 or $4 just for a bag with the sticker. That's appropriate to get it hauled away. So,
Well, I've been in metro areas where the neighborhood was just told to put their leaves and their tree waste out in the parking.
Exactly.
And the city comes and picks it up, cleans it, hauls it away. And they do that in many neighborhoods in Chicago. You know, it works very nicely. That would be a great option.
and there are places where,
Yeah, bring it to the curb, let the city take it.
and there are places where,
Look at Jack, where's Jack back there?
Sorry, Jack, you know, but
I think that was an editorial comment.
you know, but I mean, other places do it. It's not impossible for a city or a metropolitan area to do that sort of service.
And there are places where,
Any place.
leaves are chewed up and used as mulch.
I don't have a lawnmower that can mulch 2 foot of pinto clips. And I might have that in 18 hours when my tree decides to let go. And there's not a machine I can buy or afford to buy that can mulch 18 inches or 2 feet of pinto clips. You know, all I can do is take the time to bag them,
Well,
and I get rid of them.
you have lots of trees, and so does the Stone Estate. I mean, we're Tree City practically, it seems like.
If we just had an option for the small sticks, the small branches, the little 18-inch thing that falls out by the dozens every day, that right now I'm accumulating on the north side of my storage shed in a huge pile because I can't burn right now. And so I've got this pile of stuff out there that my neighbors have to look at. And so, over a period of time, I'll haul them out to the farm just to get rid of them and clean up my backyard again. You know, but once burning comes, then I do have an option. And I can take care of that stuff in the fall. I would love to haul it in the trailer down to someplace in Perry and get rid of it, and absolutely forbid anybody to start a fire there, and let the city take care of it.
What if instead of, it sounds like we've got a lot of opinions around the table. What if we postpone a decision, let our city employees study this topic and see if we can come up with some options? I mean, think of every possible option. Councilman Schatz proposed some things, Councilman Stone's proposed some things. I think we're going to have a very divisive issue here unless we can come together on something. And I would propose that we postpone a decision for the,
Schedule a meeting with Public Works Committee again. That was Randy and John? Who was that? Was it?
I think, but I'm not absolutely sure.
We'll make sure about that and set up a meeting, so. We can
so I urge us to,
comes to my mind is maybe we could do citywide yard waste pickup, just like we do on Wednesdays. Sometimes at the beginning and the end of the season, we do that, just to get that big bulk.
We do that. On the 28th, November 4th, and November 18th, we pick up citywide.
Okay.
That, it stops on the south side on October 21st, and then there's 3 citywide pickups.
well, I just urge us to
Yeah.
wait till October 5th, have a proposal brought forward to us with some good options, and then we can make a better informed decision, I think.
Well, just as a point of clarification, can we put 6 in the bags to be picked up on yard waste days? How about,
And they fit a neck, yeah.
yeah, if they
That's
go in
the
the
big
neck,
thing,
and
yes.
when they're bigger, you chop them up and bind them, right? Well,
4 foot by 3.
that's an alternative, other than to haul them away, and I realize it'd be a lot of work.
It's easier for me to haul them away.
It is a lot of work.
Just procedurally,
Pickup and clear out.
I've tried it.
Yeah.
Got it shut
Well, then
away.
don't have that alternative. Or at least don't.
Yeah, that's right.
More recently,
we did, the reason that we have number two, which is, all burning is restricted to private property in the rear of the property, and 30 feet from any building inhabited by other than the landowner or tenant. That came from a citizen who came forward just not all that long ago.
And that makes sense.
And, yeah, it's to keep it away and try to safety. So it is it's been a concern, continues to be a concern. And I don't know, I'm so old that I remember going out back. In fact, I used to always have burns on the ends of my fingers from lighting the match to the newspapers and everything else that we would burn every week. At some point in time, we decided that that was too much as a society all over the country. We decided that isn't going to work. And I'm sure there was a similar discussion at the time. That really puts a lot of burden back on the citizens, and what are we going to do? And we're going to have to buy new, bigger garbage cans and all this thing. And that was that way for a long time before we ever talked about recycling. But somehow we managed to deal with it, and I don't know if that's where we are with this issue.
No, I just urge us to give city employees a couple weeks here to put some things together for us, get that out in the packets for our October 5th meeting. Then I'd feel a lot better about making a decision at that point. Right now, I don't like just the restriction that we've got right now. So I'd urge us
Get
to,
together and make up a recommendation.
And I might suggest, since we're off on the topic, that some of our citizens, if they have a particular point of view on either side, that they just city hall a call and kind of keep track of pros and cons so that we have some sort of feeling about the citizens, because at this point, in my view, there's no use having a big open meeting dealing with the subject. And,
so procedurally, I know we have,
That's right, we have a motion
we have
and
a
we have a
motion and we have a second right now.
We're gonna have to go back and, change the motion in the second. So,
Well, I,
to vote it down.
yeah, I would just move to amend the motion to, for more study.
was that your motion?
No, it was Councilman Stone's.
Us to do the
Okay.
amending,
All right.
if you're so inclined.
I don't think I do, but then that's fine.
We can vote it down.
I can vote it down too. I don't think I have to do the amending. I think you can offer an amendment anytime.
Counselor?
But I don't want to get into a procedural thing. I'll move to withdraw my motion. Somebody seconded it.
I'll second that. I'll make it right.
Okay, now I would move that we,
Oh, excuse me, I did second it, so I will second it, yes.
so,
So we have dropped the issue, haven't we? Yeah, we dropped the issue.
then I'd move that this topic be on the October 5th agenda with study by city employees to look at all kinds of options that might be available to us, maybe even a hybrid type of a policy or ordinance, and bring that forward at our October 5th meeting.
And I'll second that.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Collins?
Yes.
Sharp? Yes. Walls?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Ingram? Yes.